What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be talking about a handful of leaks regarding the next Call of Duty game. We'll just call it Modern Warfare 2022, because some of these leaks are quite interesting and potentially give a little bit of insight into the direction they're planning on taking this year's Call of Duty game. Now, just like with any leak video, just the standard disclaimer here, these are based on leaks, and therefore none of this is confirmed, and even if these are true at this point in development, they could very easily change by the time we actually see the game. So do take that with a grain of salt, at least to some extent, but also realize I don't tend to make leak videos unless the leak is coming from a source that I generally trust. And the leaks today will be coming from the Ghost of Hope on Twitter. And first, let's do a recap of some of the leaks from Ghost of Hope over the past several days that on their own I didn't feel were worth making a video about, but now I feel like enough of them have piled up to make this video. First up, it looks like the classic minimap is returning, so enemies that fire unsuppressed weapons will be showing up as red dots on the radar without any perk required or like a spy plane or UAV up in the air. And in my opinion, this is excellent news as long as suppressors have proper trade-offs. They should have very noticeable downsides to them, or perhaps just make the other muzzle attachments very good choices so it becomes a difficult choice as to whether or not you use a suppressor, so then they don't become complete crutches. Additionally, the general map design philosophy appears to be more so following the classic 3-lane style. And he further specifies that it's more along the lines of maps like Cheshire Park, Candor Hideout, Gunrunner, Hackney Yard, and Hovik Sawmill, which again, this does sound like good news compared to their normal approach to maps in Modern Warfare 2019, outside of those particular ones, where it was pretty obvious that at least a very large portion of the community was not happy with many of those maps. Then, apparently, at least at this stage in development, there is a form of Last Stand in the game. For those that don't know what Last Stand is, maybe you didn't play the old Call of Duty games. Basically, when using this perk in the past, if you got killed, you actually wouldn't die immediately. You'd go into a downed state, and once you're in that state, you can use a pistol and shoot back at your enemy. Now, of course, you're extremely low health at this point, like just a stun grenade would kill you. But still, it was a very frustrating and annoying perk, and it was almost universally hated in the Call of Duty community. It actually became quite a meme because of how many people despise the Last Stand perk. But at the very least, the version of Last Stand that's currently in Modern Warfare 2022 is as a field upgrade rather than a perk. So it's probably something you have to time properly. Also, it has to charge up so you don't just respawn with it every single time you spawn into the game. So if this does end up being kept in the game, at least it doesn't sound quite as bad as a perk, but I still just don't like the idea of this whatsoever. As for the next leak, apparently they're changing up the perk structure a little bit, and in Modern Warfare 2022, it looks like we may be able to choose 4 perks instead of 3, and there's still going to be 3 tiers of perks, but each player gets to choose 2 tier 1 perks, and then the tier 2 and tier 3 perks, you only get 1 of each of those. And apparently those first tier perks are the ones that really define your playstyle. So I would assume it's actually similar to Vanguard, because that's what the tier 1 perks in Vanguard do, is they really define your playstyle. Like Ghost, for instance, is it going to be a stealthy playstyle, or fortified, or whatever the equivalent of that is, flak jacket, EOD, where it's all about explosive resistance, so you're going to be that guy on the objectives very often. It seems like they're going to allow us to choose 2 of those perks, which could be interesting. I honestly feel like in Vanguard, if we were able to choose 2 tier 1 perks, that would open things up a lot more and also reduce a lot of frustration. So I am very open to this idea at this point. Obviously, we'd have to see the full system and all the perks and how they're laid out to really form a solid opinion on this. But at the very least, on paper, it sounds like it could be a good idea. And finally, this is where I want to get into the newer leak that really triggered the idea for this video. It looks like at this point in development, there is literally 0 sprint out time, and you can sprint while aiming down sight. And this actually corroborates a leak from a while back from Ralph's Valve, who is another person that's been apparently leaking a lot of Modern Warfare stuff. And I really wanted to share my thoughts on this particular aspect, because this isn't one like minor part of the create a class or something like that. This is something that would drastically change how the game plays on a game-to-game and even on a gunfight-to-gunfight basis. And for those that have been around the channel for a while, you guys know I like aggression in Call of Duty. I like running around like crazy. I don't like really slow sprint out times. But at the same time, having literally 0 sprint out time, this does concern me to some extent. It's all on a scale, and I definitely lean in the direction of wanting faster sprint out times, but not necessarily 0 sprint out time. Now, the problem with having general sprint out times that are too slow, especially with a fast time to kill game that Call of Duty tends to be, is that strongly discourages people from moving around the map, because if you get caught sprinting and an enemy is posted up, by the time you're even able to fire your gun, you're often going to be dead. And therefore, you're a lot less likely to be running around, and you're a lot more likely to want to post up and catch those people that are dumb enough to sprint, because then those people would be free kills for you. So too slow of a sprint out time can really harm the gameplay pacing, and that leads to a much more, we'll say, tactical experience where sprinting should be used very conservatively, and instead you should be like crouch walking around or just posted up on a piece of cover. And to me, that's not Call of Duty. That doesn't fit with the gameplay style of Call of Duty at all. So too slow is a really bad thing in my opinion. But on the other end of that, if we're looking at the other extreme of literally eliminating sprint out time, this is where you start running into some pretty big technical issues, and the biggest one here is peeker's advantage. For those that don't know, in a first-person shooter, especially an online first-person shooter, generally speaking, if you have one player that's posted up and one player that's coming around a corner to challenge that player, the person that is moving and actively coming around the corner is going to be able to see the posted up player before that posted up player is able to see them. And this is largely just due to network delay, although there's a whole lot that goes into this when you start looking at extrapolation and interpolation of everything. But essentially, this is a characteristic that pretty much can't be eliminated in an online environment. No matter how they can try to minimize this as much as possible, but there's always going to be some level of peeker's advantage where that person coming around the corner has the advantage. And when you have a fast movement speed and you're able to sprint around a corner, that exacerbates the issue. And if you have a 0 sprint out time, that means if you're posted up and you're playing something very strategically, you're playing it well, you're holding the right angle, and somebody comes around the corner with a 0 sprint out time, you will be receiving damage before you even see that player on your screen. Before the player is visible on your screen, you will be taking damage. And that's obviously an unfair situation, because there's nothing you can do to react to that situation if you literally can't see the enemy that is dealing damage to you. So having some level of sprint out time helps alleviate that issue. It prevents people from literally sprinting around the corner and immediately landing shots on you. There's going to be a bit of a delay there, and that does help counteract peeker's advantage a little bit. Additionally, outside of the technical issue there with peeker's advantage, just from a gameplay standpoint as well, I feel like going too far in that extreme will be harming good positioning. It's one thing to discourage people from sprinting and strongly encourage people to just sit posted up because you'd be scared to do anything else. And it's another thing to make it so when you are posted up in a situation where you should be posted up, maybe you're holding map control or you have to cut off a lane for your team, for instance, and that's the right thing for you to be doing, then you shouldn't be at a disadvantage to somebody that is not really paying attention to their surroundings and they're just sprinting around like a chicken with their head cut off. There has to be some form of balance here, in my opinion, and having 0 sprint out time isn't it. If I'm set up well and I'm aiming down sight and I'm prepared for that gunfight and you sprint into that gunfight, I should have a clear advantage going into that fight. It shouldn't necessarily be a guaranteed win for me, but I should at least have the leg up because I was the one that was more prepared for the fight. So this is why I feel a 0 sprint out time is not necessarily a good idea. But having said that, I'm definitely on board with faster sprint out times compared to what we've been seeing in many recent Call of Duty games. And at least one big positive thing that I'm pulling out of this is it really seems like Infinity Ward has recognized that at least a large portion of the community really didn't like how slow Modern Warfare 2019 had a tendency to play, outside of Shipment and Shoot House, obviously. And it appears this time around, they're leaning a little bit more in a faster paced direction. So for me, and what I look for, it seems like they're moving in the right direction. I just hope they don't overcompensate, which will cause a lot of players with maybe a bit of a slower reaction time but good positioning to hate the game. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see on all of this. So far, I'm feeling quite optimistic about a lot of the leaks that I've been seeing. Obviously not all of them. That Last Stand leak I'm a little concerned about. But it does seem like they are considering the issues that many players had with Modern Warfare 2019, and they're trying different things to alleviate those issues, which is excellent news for me. But of course, these are all just my opinions. I want to hear what you guys think in the comments section below. What do you think about the earlier leaks that I talked about at the beginning of the video? And then another thing is, what do you think about having a 0 sprint out time? Do you think that's a good idea? or a bad idea for Call of Duty? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.